Minecraft updates. There's lots of them, some hated, some loved. Either way, a few have had a massive impact on the game. Wow, I feel like I've done this intro before. Anyways, as new players continue to find and enjoy the game, having an abundance of features available at their fingertips already, it's interesting to think back to when many specific blocks, items, or other mechanics of the game didn't exist yet, and what it was like without them. Today we are talking about Minecraft's most impactful and important updates. These are major updates to the game which introduce features that we use incredibly often whenever we play it today, and without them, Minecraft really wouldn't be the same. We'll be talking about versions from 2009 all the way up to recent years. So, be sure to update the subscribe button to grey for me so my sub count will get patched to 500k. No pressure, of course. Alright, so I think it goes without saying that one of the first majorly impactful updates to the game was Classic 0.24 Survival Test, the first version of Survival Minecraft. The version we are using here is Classic 0.24 Survival Test 3, as the first survival test is lost to time. Nevertheless, as you can see, we have the health bar that goes down upon taking various forms of damage. Now, differences to survival today are the fact that health did not regenerate naturally, and the only way to restore health was to eat brown mushrooms, which restored 2.5 hearts. On the contrary, eating red mushrooms actually would damage you, doing 1.5 hearts of damage. This version also added the control scheme we are familiar with today, where players could right-click to build or place blocks, and left-click to destroy. Prior to this, you would right-click to prepare or enter build mode, and then left-click to place the block, which was very annoying. Now, there was quite the controversy upon the initial release of Classic 0.24 Survival Test, as it was actually locked behind a paywall, as Notch believed the version was not ready for public release yet. Roughly a month later, however, everybody would gain access to Classic 0.26, fortunately. Indev 201.00129 is probably a version of the game you've never heard of before. But did you know it was the very first version of the game to introduce what makes up over half the game's name? That's right, crafting. Now, in the first iteration of crafting, upon a player opening their inventory, they would still see the old stats, and there seemed to be no area to craft. You see in this version, likely as a temporary placeholder, by pressing B you would actually open up the crafting GUI, and from there you could craft the limited amount of items available at the time. This version of Indev also added Black Steel. Inf 201.00227-1 is the first ever version of Minecraft Infdev, and therefore was the first ever version of the game which supported infinite terrain. Now, I don't think I even need to explain how impactful this update was. It's arguably the most impactful on this list. Prior to Minecraft Infdev, worlds had a limited predetermined size as well as generation Stal that wasn't very big at all. So making the game's world sprawl out basically infinitely was a monumental change, especially for the time. But this update was also riddled with issues and controversy upon release, as prior Indev worlds could not be loaded in Infdev versions. This meant that players who had been playing the game up until then had to begin a new world or stay on Indev, until the community created programs such as MC Edit in order to change the level file format themselves. Nevertheless, while the switch to infinite worlds was disputed at the time, it's undeniable that it only had a positive and everlasting impact on the game to this day. Out of all the versions of Minecraft Alpha, the one which was most impactful on the game is the very last major Alpha release, Alpha 1.2, otherwise known as the Halloween update. Released on October the 30th, 2010, it added an entire new dimension to Minecraft, the Nether, or as players at the time would know it, Hell. With this update, we got a variety of new blocks and new Nether-specific mobs. Initially, the Nether was going to be named the Slip or the Slip Gate, and Notch had even considered another name, the Nexus, but he felt neither felt Minecraft enough. You can see that in the preview versions given to PC Gamer, it was actually named the Slip Gate for some time, so Notch may have changed it to the Nether last minute. This update was very impactful at the time, and Notch himself had hyped it up prior, often mentioning that it was the biggest update to Minecraft yet. In the days and even weeks leading up to the Nether update, Notch was frequently posting spoilers and screenshots on his Tumblr blog, making players suffer in anticipation. He would even give early access versions to PC Gamer and indie games, so they could make videos and articles about the Nether, hyping it up even more. A common misconception is that Notch's goal with the Nether was just to create a hell, but he really wanted it to be an alternate fast travel dimension as well, and let that guide his developmental process. And that decision was very impactful, and arguably the most important thing about the Nether to this day is the ability to create Nether highways and travel extended lengths of the overworld at ease. And while this update was primarily focused around the Nether, it was also the first version of the game to add biomes to the overworld, including rainforest, seasonal forest, just forest, shrubland, taiga, tundra, savanna, plains, swampland, desert, and frozen desert. This also meant that grass and leaves would vary slightly in color depending on the biome now. Our next addition to this list may surprise you. Can you imagine a Minecraft where you couldn't sleep? Actually, let's not imagine. This video has to be safe for YouTube after all. I'm sure we all owe our thanks to Beta 1.3, as that is the version of the game which introduced the much loved beds. No longer would we have to wait out the struggles of the night, we can just sleep it off, much like we do so for our problems in the real world. Furthermore, the addition of beds to the game finally allowed players to control their spawn point. Previously, if you ventured out and built a base far from spawn, getting back to it was a massive hassle if you died, especially so because you couldn't sprint either. So beds really were a godsend for the game and are still very important in modern Minecraft. Furthermore, Beta 1.3 also added redstone repeaters, which allowed players to extend and delay their redstone circuits with much greater ease now, another core mechanic we still use regularly years later. Further notable additions was the smooth lighting setting, slabs giving players the ability to name their worlds and put in a seed, and letting players create as many worlds as they wanted, not limiting them to just 5 anymore. Interestingly, when Beta 1.3 was first released, it accidentally had debug code that spawned players with a variety of items such as 64 torches, diamond tools, and beds, so had to be re-uploaded. Here's another version of the game which made it into my worst Minecraft updates video as well. But Beta 1.8 is here for a different reason this time. While yes, the addition of the hunger bar and sprinting were incredibly important and impactful on the game, there is another feature many people forget about when thinking of Beta 1.8. You see, Beta 1.8 added creative mode. Prior to Beta 1.8, if players wanted to just free build with unlimited resources, they would need a nice concoction of mods to even imitate creative. You would need single player commands to fly as well as to put on god mode so you wouldn't die and perform a variety of other commands, as well as too many items to easily spawn items in, instead of having to Google the block ID every single goddamn time you wanted to / give yourself an item. So, getting creative mode was a great addition to the game, but I know for a fact some players would happily sacrifice it if it could mean Beta 1.8 would have never happened. Let's keep this short and simple. Minecraft 1.0.0 was the game's full release and added an end goal to the game. The end. Thinking about it now, they couldn't have come up with a more original name? Anyways, this update also introduced enchanting and potions, which are core features of Minecraft, especially enchanting. We also got a lot of new mobs, many of them annoying, as well as a variety of new blocks, new biomes such as the Mushroom Island, and breeding, which set into motion what would be a sad future of horrible animal abuse. Minecraft 1.0.0 gave the game direction, depth, and made it feel so much more magical and alive. Minecraft 1.3 was also a very impactful update, but not exactly for the reasons you would think. First of all, there were still a lot of good features added, like desert temples and jungle pyramids, as well as giving villagers the ability to actually perform trades, and not just walk around like the useless NPCs they are. Ender chests were also added in this update, and continue to be the only real method of private storage on multiplayer servers, provided they don't allow 10 PVs like your average pay-to-win garbage faction server. Speaking of servers, want to join one that's not pay-to-win garbage? Then check out OG Network and our SMP, which allows griefing, PvP, and has an actual player-run market, now Bedrock compatible. Emeralds were also added to the game, intended to be the currency villagers would receive upon carrying out trades with players, but at the end of the day, they end up slaving away in our farms for crops, only for us to trade them right back to them. However, the biggest, most game-changing and important change this update came with was the ability to open to LAN. Now players could use a variety of commands in single player, without the need for external game modifications, as well as easily click 2 buttons to allow players on their local network to join and play, instead of failing to port forward for the 4th time in a week. It also meant players could easily change the game mode of a world now, allowing us to cheat our items in easier when we died. But fundamentally, this changed the way we even played single player, as it was no longer truly single player, but rather a local server, automatically running when you started playing on a world. This led to a lot of client internal server desync issues, which many players would complain about at the time, but also made many things better. No longer would the game freeze whenever chunks wouldn't load, but would rather lag like a server, and creating mods for multiplayer also became easier, as single player and multiplayer code became more similar. Minecraft 1.5, otherwise known as the Redstone update, added a variety of new redstone blocks and mechanics, and also everybody's favorite building block, quartz. We got activator rails, block of redstone, daylight sensors, droppers, redstone comparators, trap chests, weighted pressure plates, but most importantly, hoppers. Prior to this update, automatic farm item collection relied on players going and picking up items from a water stream. This would get incredibly annoying, as you can imagine, as you would have to rush there every 5 or so minutes, otherwise your items would just despawn. Minecraft 1.9 is likely the most controversial update to Minecraft we've ever seen, but its impact on the game is undeniable. It completely overhauled the dragon fight, making it more challenging and fun, and made the end generate with islands instead of just a cold, empty void of nothingness. We got end cities, but most importantly, shulkers to make shulker boxes and elytras. If you want to know how crucial both of those were to the game, just try playing without shulker boxes, and let me know how many days, or hours, it takes until your chests begin looking like this. And as for elytras, well, just try flying without one. Doesn't work well, does it? Furthermore, we also got the mending enchantment, which now meant we could repair our gear without having to use valuable resources over and over. And while the PvP changes were mostly disliked, we did get the addition of the offhand, which became the new home of torches and food. Furthermore, shields were added to the game as well, which along with the new hit delay, completely changed PvE and PvP into what it is today. There were a lot of other blocks and items which were added, but compared to the changes we just talked about, they weren't nearly as notable. At the time, Minecraft 1.16 was the biggest update the game had ever seen, completely overhauling the nether by adding new biomes, mobs, blocks, trees, and structures, but also doing something that YouTubers had been clickbaiting for years, adding a new type of block and item which was better than diamond. That's right, move over emerald armor, we've got a new tier of armor to clickbait now. With ancient debris being added as a block, which could be smelted down into netherite ingots, players could now convert their diamond armor and tools into a much more badass netherite. Furthermore, netherite gear, besides being better in general compared to diamond, also would not burn if you happen to die in lava, for example. I really have to commend Mojang with how they handled adding netherite to the game, as not only did they still keep diamonds relevant, but they made netherite gear unique enough that it was still worth it to go out of your way to get it. And finally today we have 1.18. To date, 1.18 is the biggest update Minecraft has ever had, completely overhauling caves, really making the underground feel massive and alive. Furthermore, 1.18 also revamped general overworld terrain, making it feel much more realistic. Terrain would now utilize Minecraft's increased build height more effectively, and mountains finally actually became mountains rather than just exaggerated hills. And there were a lot of other blocks and items as well, but I'm sure you are already aware. And that's that so far. Did I miss an update? Be sure to let me know in the comments, and of course, subscribe. Thank you all so much for watching.